Hey everyone, welcome to Story Behind the Resume. I'm your host, Abu Saim. So, I've spent over a decade in the world of digital marketing, e commerce, and tech. Think consumer goods and fast food. I've been there. I've been lucky to work with some amazing leaders, and I've always been fascinated by their stories, the ups and downs, the unexpected turns, and how they got to where they are right now. Here's the thing, resumes only tell part of the story. They show the highlights, the big wins, but what about the struggles, the setbacks, the detours that don't fit neatly on a page? Those are the things that really shape us. That's why I started Story Behind the Resume speaker series. I wanted to dig deeper to uncover the real stories behind those polished resumes because a career isn't just a list of jobs, right? It's a journey of growth, resilience, and figuring things out along the way. In each episode, we go beyond job titles and explore the moments that defined my guests' careers. We'll hear about the lessons they learned, the challenges they overcame, and the values that guided them. My hope is that these stories will inspire you, encourage you, and remind you that your own career journey is awesome and worth celebrating. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the conversation. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Afshah. Afshah Nabi is the Project Engineering Management Director at Alphawave Semi. With over 13 years of experience in the semiconductor industry, with roles starting as an individual contributor, then transitioning to an operations based role, and finally to a senior leadership position. Okay, so let's dive in. I want to welcome Afshah. Hi, Afshah. Good afternoon.
Hello,
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
So glad you're here. Today, we're going to chat with you about your career journey. We'll find out what you studied and what got you interested in this field. Then, we'll hear about how you landed your first job, what led you to that role or industry. Finally, we'll learn about some of the lessons you learned and challenges you faced early on, experiences that shaped your path. Whether you're a student, a recent grad, or just curious about how successful people got where they are, this chat will be super insightful and inspiring to our listeners. So let's just jump in. So, Afsha, will you please tell us a bit about your educational background for our listeners?
Sure. So, as we start, my name is Afshah Nabi. Thank you for having me here today.
Sure.
I was born and raised in Dhaka, Bangladesh, where I studied and finished my high school. After finishing my A levels
Hmm.
in European Standard School in Dhaka, I decided to pursue my university education in Canada.
I see.
I completed a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Toronto in 2010.
Okay. Wow. That's quite an accomplishment from Dhaka and then over here, University of Toronto. How was that, um, I say, culture shift or the change felt like at that time?
So it was a big shift for me because till my A levels days, I used to live with my parents,
Right.
and to a certain degree, was very much dependent on the work that they did for me as well as the support that they had for me.
Hmm.
When I came here, I lived in the university residence by myself. I did not know any friends who were already here. I had an aunt who lived in Toronto, but in Scarborough, so it was pretty far away from
Yeah.
downtown. So I
Right.
had to learn how to fend for myself, how to make food, how to do my groceries, go to the bank, get my needs done, as well as
Wow.
study to make sure
Right.
that I was able to get through the new life that I'm starting to build here. But it was a great learning experience, and I think it's helped to shape the person I am today.
Totally. And I totally can relate because I had a similar experience. I'm also from the same country. And for the listeners, I've been here since 2003, and I went through the same kind of experience as you do. And as a newcomer, as a new young student, it is a very challenging time of your life. So we'll talk about that more. I want to ask you, Afsha, what was your first job like? And did you choose your industry, or it just came to you determined?
All right. So my first job, which actually doesn't show up in my resume, was with Qualicom Innovations as a development analyst.
I see.
My job there was to design and test web applications for content management systems. I was fresh out of school, eager to learn and get into the working industry, and did not have patience at that time to wait for the
Right,
right role to come my way. I
right.
just accepted the first job that I received an offer for
Mm,
and got into this company. It turns out it was not something I enjoyed. I did not like my day to day. I was frustrated
mm-hmm.
and to a certain degree, like, even depressed with what I was doing.
Mm,
So I
interesting.
decided to part ways after a few
Right.
months because that is not what I wanted for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then started actively searching for another job. So my first real job in my mind was with AMD as a
Okay.
custom layout designer.
Okay.
And my role in AMD was to do physical design implementation of analog circuits for the AMD's DisplayPort team.
Wow. Very interesting, Afsha. What you are saying is your first job. That is actually was my ideal job when I graduated, but I didn't land that job. I went to a telemarketing job, which I truly didn't like at all. I'll tell that to the listeners another day, but it was a lot of tough moments, but a lot of learnings, a lot of things that I still use. For example, cold calling, or just walk up to somebody and uh, all of a sudden talk, start a conversation. I learned that's very critical and important skill in that job. All right, moving forward. What do you think are the key lessons? I know you talked about the first job, which was not AMD, but what kind of lessons do you derive from there?
So, if I had to reflect on my initial career experience, I would have told my younger self to be patient and continue to look for a role that I would enjoy, find
Right.
rewarding, and could see a path forward for growth.
I see.
Based on my personal experience, my first role of just having a job is not enough to be able to wake up every day, go about, and do your daily business. It's very important to feel the self satisfaction and the
Right.
fulfillment in the work
Definitely.
that you do.
Definitely. Definitely. Wow. That's a very brilliant reply or response to that question. Thank you so much for sharing, Afsha. Um, to continue, we want to move to your early career and background, or we have just finished that. We want to move on to your career growth and transition section. I just want to give some overview to our listeners. Now that we know about Afsha's early career, let's check out how she's grown professionally. We'll look at the big moments that shaped her path, like promotions, job changes, or even switches to totally new fields. We'll find out why she made those choices, she risked the risks she took, and how those things affected her career. Plus, we'll hear about the key skills she learned to do well at different points in her career, and how she kept learning and growing. It's cool how unexpected twists and turns in your career can lead to awesome things. Let's hear how Afsha handled those changes and what she learned along the way. So, Afsha, what are some of your major milestones and decisions and skills you decided to develop in your role earlier?
Right. So now that I was at AMD, it was my dream role. I was happy, satisfied. I was learning in leaps and bounds and getting my career started in this industry. I was young, I was eager to contribute at whatever capacity I was given, and soon I'd made very good connections within the company. However, after only a year and a few months, due to an unfortunate turn of events, I was impacted by a massive company wide layoff at AMD, where 10% of their global workforce was terminated. So it was definitely a big punch in the gut.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
to a young professional who had never experienced a situation like this, it
Mm-hmm.
was very demoralizing and
Wow.
I was lost.
Wow.
So I quickly rallied, though, and the connections that I had made at AMD came to use when I reached out to a previous leader at AMD who had left to join a startup. The startup at that time was called Vsemi, and he was a layout manager there, similar to the role that I was doing at AMD. So Vsemi had recently been acquired by Intel, and they had started going through a rapid growth stage. So I was able to land a role as the custom layout designer there at Intel and was starting my new job after a few months after I got laid off from AMD. So custom layout design was a job by profession. However, uh, I had pretty strong communicational and organizational skills, and that was an additional asset that I brought to the
Yeah.
table. So, in a large group of engineers, this was a skill that I stood out for. Engineers, if you know, are not very good at communicating, talking, or being able to express a problem or even a solution in a concise manner. So, after a few years at Intel as a custom layout designer, my soft skills were recognized, and I was offered a role as a technical project manager for the team there. To me, this was a natural step forward, as
Right.
this allowed me to be exposed to the technical team, but also facilitate them in their operations. So, my role was like the headlights of a car. I was not driving the car myself, but I could show the way forward and any obstacles that could come along the way for the team.
Right.
So I spent over 7 years in Intel. And after that, I gave birth to a beautiful daughter in 2019. I was on my maternity leave with a newborn at home. COVID had struck,
Oh,
and we were indoors all the time, and there was not much to do at that time.
we can all remember that time, I think.
So I was approached by us. Yeah, I'm sure we all remember that experience. So during that time, I was approached by a startup through LinkedIn. And at that time, out of sheer boredom, I decided to take that call. In my head, I was happy at Intel. I had a role that I enjoyed, and I had no intent to move. But I wanted to talk to someone other than that small group of my COVID social bubble. And so I decided to take that call. After that, the rest is history. I was offered a project engineering management role in Alphawave Semi. It was called Alphawave IP at that time. It
Mhm.
was a startup built by the same founders of vSemi. So I knew the people who had built that company and how talented that team was.
Wow.
The work that this company was doing was so exciting, it was dynamic, and I had no reason to say no. I gave my resignation at Intel and did not return after my maternity leave and
I
started
see.
my new role here in Alphawave. I was a
Wow.
project engineering manager here when
Right.
the company was less than 70 people. I think
Right.
my job, my badge number is like 67 or 68, I think. And I had the opportunity and fortunate experience to help develop some of the early foundations of project engineering management here in Alphawave. The company IPO'd in 2021 and it has gone through a big growth. And today we are sitting close to 1,000 employees worldwide. I was promoted to the Director of Project Engineering Management earlier this year, and I continue to contribute and help the team and company grow and to develop better processes and methodologies for the team.
Amazing story, Afsha. I didn't want to stop because it was you were in the flow, and I had several questions, so maybe I can ask now
Sure.
for our viewers and listeners. The first one was you stated about your strong skill on communications and interpersonal skills. How did you develop that? Did you work on your own? Did get a coaching? Go to Toastmasters? Um, how did you develop that? Well, if you can expand a little bit.
So I don't have any professional training or any mentoring for the communication skills point of view. However, what I tried to do was learn based on my interactions with individuals or teams of what is the best method and the best mode of
Mhm.
how a person or a team responds to. Some people are very good at talking in person,
Right,
explaining their concerns and situations, and being able to provide a solution. Some people work better if they are communicated. Let's say you've laid out your concerns or your feedback through a written form and given them some time to think about it and respond back in the same form.
right.
So that's what I try to focus on and understand what is the best way to work with different individuals with different temperaments. And that, in my view, was a great learning because the more that company grew, the more people I had to interact with. And I had to find the right way to work with different teams. And mind you, the my role in Alphawave was during COVID. So my interaction for most of the team was remote
Right.
for a good part of my early career in this company. So I had to find that a medium for them to build a trust with me so
Hmm.
that they could work with me in the most efficient manner.
Right. Wow. No, that's fascinating, and I share the same sentiment. Communication is an area I think in even in project management it's so important for different stakeholders is different, and it's really truly kudos to you that you developed it early and were able to recognize the key factors that you deployed in order to understand people, the way of working and all. Thanks for sharing that. My second question was about your networking part. We'll deep dive in later, but I guess within that, when you got laid off from Intel, oh, sorry,
AMD.
AMD, you did build some good relationship. Is there any tip for our listener how to build a good relationship?
I would say, in my personal opinion, like when you're in an environment
Yeah.
where there's your peers, but there's also leaders,
Mm-hmm.
I would take a conscious effort to make sure that you make yourself heard and to expose yourself to the leadership team. It could be a water cooler chat, it could be a coffee chat, it could be just speaking up in a meeting where you could ask a question. It
Mm-hmm.
exposes you to different people at different hierarchies, and if you're able to build a rapport with them, it goes a long way
Right.
in this
That's true.
hybrid environment and working model that we have today. I think there is tremendous value to being able to go into an office in person
Mm-hmm.
and being able to interact with the leaders there so that they know who you are, they know what you bring to the table, they recognize you,
Right.
and you're not just a picture on a badge.
Amazing. Right. I could totally followed that in my last two jobs. I was able to connect to the C level. At first, I was really scared. Like, oh my God, what she's gonna think about me. I had some confidence, or I was basically an introvert. But after, some, okay, I'm gonna do it anyway, leap of faith. I just started asking questions, interacting more with the leaders that are in the industry. Especially at Nestle, it was a huge company, right? So the leaders were all higher up in the ranks. It was really tough, but I totally agree with thanks for sharing that method. I would encourage the our viewers and listeners to try that out if they haven't already. Moving on to our next section, we're going to deep dive into your current role and your industry insights. So, just to give an overview for our viewers and listeners, um, you know, let's track your professional journey. We'll uncover your big moments that shaped your path. Any promotions that you had, any new roles that you had, and I know you shared a little bit. Were there any big moments that you want to share with us?
So I think for myself, I took a big leap of faith when I didn't go back to my previous role after maternity leave. I took a big leap of faith in joining a startup at
Mm-hmm.
that time because I had confidence in the work that
Right.
this team was doing. I
I
was
see.
fortunate enough to join at a time when there was massive growth in this
Mm-hmm.
company, and I had the good fortune to have a rapid career growth in this company. I joined as a project manager who was an individual contributor. I was, in fact, the first technical project manager
Right.
after my VP, who was here in the company. After that, I progressed pretty fast over the last 5 years. I went from a staff engineer to a senior staff and then
Mm-hmm.
finally to a director. So
I
I
see.
would think it's a bit of luck as well
Mm-hmm.
as hard work that I
Right.
put in that was recognized and
Right.
I was rewarded based on that.
Right. Right. Excuse me. So in your current role as a project engineer and manager, is there anything you want to share how you run it right now? What's your day like?
Sure. So when I was an individual contributor, which some of this also relates to what I do right now,
Yeah.
my main job was to make sure that I work closely with engineering team in helping to plan their programs, make sure that the work is correctly assigned to the team, monitor the work that's happening through the course of execution, and then taking it finally through sign off and quality checks to make sure that the product that we are developing for our customers
Mhm.
is to the quality and the requirement that they are expecting. So that's kind of like the day to day main core responsibility as a project engineering manager.
Mhm.
As we've grown, the team also has grown. We do have team members here in North America as
I
well
see.
as team members in India. So,
Hmm.
my main role today is to make sure that the teams in all these different locations are following the same execution practices and methodologies that we have set as a foundation from the beginning that is key in helping us grow and helping us scale and
Right.
having these processes in place so that we can efficiently manage the large portfolio of programs that we have here today.
I see. Oh, fascinating. Is there anything, you find difficult to manage because they're so geographically dispersed, right? They are in different countries, different time zone. Does anything that keeps you awake or, you all worry about?
So, firstly, the role of a project manager itself is a little bit abstract because we are not doing the actual work ourselves. We are completely reliant on engineering to do the
Right.
work and make sure that the work is done up to a
Right.
certain standard. So, certainly, there is a lack of control. So, for it's important to have a mindset like that, that we are not responsible for doing the actual work, but are more of a facilitator to make
Hmm.
sure that we are empowering the engineering team to do the work to the best of their ability. So, that is definitely the main challenge in this role. The global geos and working across different countries is also challenging from the standpoint that definitely time zones, interacting with individuals who are working in a different time zone is difficult. However, what we try to do is having consistent methodologies and consistent practices between the different groups help us in being able to measure the health of the program or the health of how the progress is going, uh, and being able to manage those metrics effectively because it's the same as what we see there. So, as long as the processes that the teams are using are consistent, it is
Right.
uh, it is easier to manage the work, even though they're in different geos.
Right. No, I always worry as a PM myself. You know, sometimes I think, will that get delivered? And by the talks of the daily stand up, I can feel something is wrong. So obviously, the way the definition that you gave us is basically mitigation, proactive measure in place, so that if there is something that happens, there's a process that should work. In case it doesn't work, there are catching nets that can actually put you in a good spot to recover quickly. So I think that's a key in project management. Thanks for sharing that, Afsha. Really interesting. Um, so I want to dig a little bit deeper on your PM skill set. Now that you are director, uh, do you often manage multiple PMs at the same time? Do you oversee portfolios of projects? And how do you direct your, if you do, how do you direct your, and as a director, obviously, how do you direct your PMs?
So, we have PMs here
Mhm.
in North America, and we have PMs in India. So the role of the PMs, who are individual contributors, are they manage the projects from end to end, depending on the nature of the program.
Right.
Um, my goal is to make sure that uh, the health of the projects are monitored effectively. So, and
Hmm.
if there's any risks that are being flagged as part of the project execution, that there is a mitigation plan
Right.
associated with the risk and the correct stakeholders are informed.
Awesome.
There's nothing
Yeah.
worse than having something go sideways and not having the right flags raised on time
Yeah. Yeah.
so that we have enough time to react either through some internal mitigation plan or if
Mhm.
external communication is required to the customer. So
Right.
my role is to make sure that to stay on top of those projects and make sure that the correct status of that is up leveled. Not to say that I don't do day to day project management myself. I am also very hands on. Our
Right.
company is still in a very fast growth stage, and I personally also work directly with engineering to monitor the health of the programs.
Right. So sounds like you really like, this type of work or directing the PM or project level. And, that's how you ended up in this industry doing project management. Are there any trends that you follow in the industry? Do you, certain magazines you follow or a certain publication to keep yourself up to date?
I think LinkedIn is a great source to be on top of the latest news and the latest trends that are happening in the industry. So I am a big LinkedIn follower. I have certain, um, I guess, pages, certain companies that I follow regularly, and I'm up to date with the news, including my own company who publishes frequently on LinkedIn,
Right.
to keep up to date with the trends.
Mhm.
I also follow some the silicon reports that come out as part of the news. on the web. So I'm not subscribed to anything for that you have to pay for, but
Right.
whatever is available on the internet. I
I
try to
see.
make sure that I'm up to speed so that I can
Mhm.
be more knowledgeable of what's happening in the world today.
I see. Interesting. So do you bring this over to your team, or are there any other resources from your workplace that comes up, or have some workshop or trainings that also helps you keep you up to date?
So I also try to attend relevant conferences where there's a lot of interesting either papers or recent learnings that are published and different talks that are presented by individuals who are experts in their
Hmm.
domain.
Right.
So, through conferences, seminars, as well as reading online, different publications, I think that's important to help and be the knowledgeable and stay up to date. I
Right.
encourage my team to do the same. So, anytime there is an opportunity for attending, an event like that,
Hmm.
conferences or such, I encourage my team to go as well.
Amazing. And that's a key, I guess, development tactic for anybody who's trying to pursue, and follow the current trends, especially now that we're hearing about a lot of impacts from Gen AI. So since you are in the technology industry and semiconductor industry, I want to ask you, before we move on to our next section, about the impact of AI in your industry. Is the industry obviously leading from the front? But I want to hear, and our listeners want to hear from you. How does it uh, how does it working right now?
So, as part of the technology that's offered by my company, definitely we offer different connectivity solutions for different applications where AI is one of them. So, we are very involved with different companies who have AI applications where we have our products going into that market. In terms of personal use of artificial intelligence, we do have a lot of tools now available for supporting some of the project management work that we also do, which is supported through AI. A
Right.
lot of it is bundled as part of the different office applications that we have here today, which we use. But we are finding more and more uses of certain AI platforms like ChatGPT,
Hmm.
which can support in some of the our day-to-day work that was a lot of manual effort before, which we can leverage
Right.
AI out of now to make it more efficient.
I see. Do you personally use ChatGPT as well?
I do.
Awesome. I think that is the impact that's everywhere. Everyone is buzzing about it, right? Anyway, we want to move on to our next section, which is advice for career growth. So a lot of listeners and viewers join here to listen to your story, your career journey, and also want to receive some advice about how they can uh, grow their career in their respective industries. So let's dive in into how you actually network within your industry and domain. If you have any mentorship that you have received or you provide, this is a fantastic chance to learn about building connections, right? And getting insights from the seasoned peers. So, Afsha, I think our listener would love to hear your thoughts on that. What are some of the essential skills and traits for success in this field?
So, as a PM, like we talked about, like good communicational and organizational skills is key. That's the foundation of being a good program manager. For a technical program manager, knowledge of the industry is important, not because you need to do the work, but because you need to understand the challenges that the team is facing and you can support them on
Mhm.
how to overcome it the best way that's possible.
Right.
In terms of networking and mentorship, I think it's very important to stay connected with the circle of individuals you have in your company, any individuals that uh, were there as part of your previous roles in your career, to stay connected, to be able to call on them if you need any help in the future. It could be for a new role, it could be for a reference, and also to make new connections. When you go to a conference or if you go to a work related event, it's very important to maybe sit next to somebody that you don't know, talk to them, learn about what they do, and build that connection, so that helps in growing your network. So that is very important in being able to maintain a good career networking circle. In terms of mentorship, I'm a strong advocate of mentorship. It's a great way to pay it forward if you are a mentor to somebody, or learn from somebody if you are a mentee. I
Mhm.
personally have received mentorship in my company. It's been a great learning experience because it helps me to learn and get advice from somebody who has gone through a similar situation, or has is able to provide their personal insight into what I can do to grow myself. I am also mentoring individuals within my company, as well as involved in different STEM programs for high school students in Ontario. I
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
believe it's a very important initiative to have this involvement, because the next generation of um, young individuals and professionals are going to be the next
Right.
workforce. So to be able to give them that knowledge and guidance is invaluable.
Right. And STEM means science, technology, engineering, and management. That those
And
are the
math.
and maths. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very inspired by listening to your experience and advices. One thing I wanted to actually resonate and share as well. Whenever I'm in a big forum as part of networking, I go to forums where lots of people come. I sit next to a new person every time I switch to a new, like a seminar, like a 30 minutes seminar, or even within the seminar, sometimes I switch so that I can sit next to somebody who's completely new, I never met before, and that gives me the scope of meeting new people. When you go to a seminar, if you stay in one place, you'll never, uh, you probably connect to two people. Unless you are a celebrity, obviously everyone is going to come to you, and if you are a presenter, right? So that's a great technique, and thanks for sharing that. And staying connected definitely adds a lot of value. It is the I guess secret formula of networking. Mentorship, if you, I guess I'm a project management professional, so from the PMI I do receive some mentorship as well, and I have the opportunity to mentee. So I totally agree that it keeps you learning from other people, from other resources that are shared in those sessions. I think that is also a very key advice. Thanks for sharing that. um, so moving on to our next segment, which I want to make it a little bit interesting, just to have fun with you, Afsha, is a rapid fire Q&A. I do it with every guest. So I'm going to ask you a quick question, and then you can reply back with one or two words, not too many sentences, because it is a rapid fire session, right? Are you ready, Afsha?
Let's do it.
Cool. What's the best career advice you have ever received?
Don't be afraid to be wrong. Like, learn from your mistakes and keep growing.
Awesome. A book or podcast that influenced your career?
No specific books, but I've recently read Atomic Habits and I've really enjoyed it.
Atomic Habits. Awesome. Any advice for One skill that everyone should learn.
To listen to others.
Listening. A mistake that taught you the most.
Thinking that I could adjust to any job if I just put in the effort.
Amazing. If you could do one thing differently in your career, what would that be?
Start mentorship sooner.
Great. Describe your career journey in 3 words.
Exciting, unexpected, grateful.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that, Afshat. So, any final thoughts or words of encouragement for our viewer listeners? We're almost coming to an end of our session today.
Um, don't be afraid to take risks. Sometimes the most unexpected opportunities yield the best outcomes. The answer is always a no if you don't ask. So always ask questions.
Amazing. Wow. Thanks so much, Afsha. So, uh, I want to put a summary out there before we do the wrap up. We've listened to Afsha and learned a lot. I think I took some notes as well. I want to just go through it a little bit. We have heard about your first job, how you didn't like it, and then you got a job at AMD where there was a layoff. That was a big disruption for in your career, and it was demoralizing. But you picked yourself up, which is amazing. That's something that a lot of people are facing right now. The economy is bad, so a lot of people are being laid off. So good advice for those people that, it's never too far. Pick yourself up and run. You'll succeed. So and other key areas that we have heard um, about communication skills, how you keep up communicating with each other, with different folks in the company when you are working with so many different people from background. Obviously, you have to keep an open mind out. Thanks for sharing that key lesson on advice. That keep your mind open um, and um, I guess customize your answers, customize your replies to each of the folks, and try to find a way of working. Um, project manage as a project manager, you do keep yourself up to date by going to seminars or listening to project management webinars, and also I guess conferences you mentioned. Um, in terms of networking and mentorship, you highly recommended that everyone should do networking, even if it's within the company. Um, Talk to the leaders, go for a virtual coffee, um, speak up in sessions where there are other leaders, and try to build some kind of relationship that might come useful later in life, right? So, huge thanks for tuning in to Story Behind the Resume. I want to learn more about our awesome guest, or if you want to learn more about our awesome guest or connect with our future speakers, please let me know. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find the links in the description. And guess what? We're planning even more amazing sessions with folks from tech, marketing, finance, and more, all sharing their career stories and advice. And so don't miss out. Hit that follow button on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the rate Story Behind the Resume. And if you love listening on the go, we'll be launching I mean, the podcast is already launched. Is This recording will be available either tonight or tomorrow morning, as soon as Apple and Google updates their RSS feed. So keep an eye out for that. Follow us on LinkedIn to stay updated for new episodes and podcast releases. There is one more podcast and video cast that I'm expecting coming up next week, so stay tuned. And hey, if you are a pro with cool career story to share, we want to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn and let's chat about featuring you on Story Behind the Resume. Thanks again for joining us. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories that go beyond the resume. Keep learning, keep exploring. And I want to thank Afsha for sitting down with me and telling her story of her story behind the resume. Thank you so much, Afsha. Have a great
Thank
rest of
you.
the day.
Bye.
Bye bye.